let's go ahead and take a look at this one now. And we're looking at Christina is paid a bi-weekly salary. Now, if you'll remember from our vocabulary, bi-weekly was 26 times in a year. So each time we have a question like this, what we're trying to do is see what it is in terms of an annual basis. So annually, if they're paid bi-weekly, they are paid 26 times in 1 year. Her annual salary is $37,500, and it's asking what is her bi-weekly salary, round to the nearest cent. So we're simply going to take the $37,500, which is the annual pay, and we are going to divide it by 26. We find that the bi-weekly pay is $1,442.31. And that's all we do here. For the check your understanding, I'd like for you to go ahead and work this. Please pause the video, and when you are done, restart. All right. Let's see how you did. It says Carlos earned X dollars bi-weekly. Express his annual salary algebraically. So it's saying 26 times a year, Carlos is getting paid X dollars. Because it says here Carlos earns X dollars bi-weekly. And that is all you need to do to get it from bi-weekly to annually. Number 2. Manny is paid semi-monthly. Well, semi-monthly, semi is half, and month is obviously month, so it's every half month. And we learned from our vocabulary that that means 24 times per year. Now notice I'm writing that up above. I'd recommend that for you. I think it makes it easier for you to remember. His semi-monthly salary is $1,239. What is his annual salary? So again, we're going small to big, and when you think of small to big, we're multiplying, we're making it bigger. So $1,239, and that happens 24 times per year because it's semi-monthly. And we find that Manny's annual salary is $29,736. Now I'd like for you to pause the video and complete this check your understanding. When you're done, press play and we'll finish up. All right, let's see how you did. Alex is paid semi-monthly, so hopefully you said that that was 24 times per year. His annual salary is Y dollars, so we're going big to small here because it says express his semi-monthly salary. Well, if annually he earns Y dollars, to get that to semi-monthly, we're going to divide it by the number of paychecks Alex receives, which is 24. Example 3, Maureen works at a local Chicken King restaurant. Her regular hourly wage is $9.70. If she works regular hours of 40 per week, what is her weekly pay? Well, she works 40 hours, and each hour she gets $9.70. So in order to get her weekly pay, we're going to multiply the two together, and we find that every week, if Maureen works her 40 hours, she will get paid $388. Please pause the video and complete this check your understanding. When you're done, press play. Okay. Roger works regularly H hours per week at a rate of D dollars per hour. Express the annual salary algebraically. Well, we know that they work H hours per week and the rate is D, but that's only going to give me 1 week, and it's asking for the annual salary. So once I do that, I need to take it. Remember, there are 52 weeks in a year, so I'm going to multiply this by 52, and my final answer is 52 times H for number of hours times D for the rate. If Maureen from example 3 works overtime, she receives a rate of 1.5 times her regular hourly rate. What is her overtime rate? Well, if we remember back, Maureen earned $9.70 per hour. To say 1.5 times, another way to write that would be 1.5. So she gets her regular pay plus half again as much. So if I take that 1.5 and multiply it by the 970, I find that Maureen earns overtime pay of $14.55. Please pause the video for this check your understanding. When you're done, press play. All right, if Marianne earns Y dollars per hour, express her hourly overtime rate if she is paid time and a half. Now remember, time and a half, probably the best way for us to refer to time and a half is 1.5 times the regular pay, and her regular hourly pay is Y, so 1.5 times Y is going to give me the hourly rate. Example 5, Janice earns $10 per hour. If her regular hours are 40 per week and she receives time and a half for overtime, find her total pay in a week if she gets 45 hours. Well, we need to break this up, and there's a few things that we need to do. The first thing we need to do is find her OT rate. Well, if her regular rate is $10 an hour, and her overtime rate is 1.5 times her regular rate, it's going to be 1.5 times 10, which is $15 per hour. So she earned her regular rate for 40 hours, which is 40 times 10, which comes to $400. That was Janice's regular pay. But notice here she worked 45 hours, so 40 minus the 45 minus 40 means that she worked 5 hours of overtime. So 5 hours at the rate that we already determined of $15 an hour gives me a total of $75. If I add those together, we find that Janice's pay was $475. Please pause the video and complete this check your understanding. When you're done, press play. All right, let's see how you did. Ron worked regularly 40 hours per week at a rate of X dollars per hour. So regular equals X. Last week he worked Y hours of overtime at a rate of time and a half. So I know that OT, or overtime, is 1.5 times that regular rate. It's express the total weekly salary algebraically. So if we look at this, it's going to be 40 hours times that regular rate of X plus 1.5 times X, which was here the overtime rate, times the number of hours he worked overtime, which we determined was Y. And this is the overtime rate. Example 6, Samantha worked 40 regular hours last week, 7 hours of overtime at time and a half. Her gross pay was $611. What was her hourly rate? So her hour or regular rate was X, and her overtime rate was time and a half, so it's going to be 1.5 times X. I know that she worked 40 hours at the regular rate of X, plus she worked 7 overtime hours times the 1.5 times X, and the whole thing totaled $611.05. If I go ahead and I distribute this, I find that it's 40X plus 10.5X, which is the 7 times 1.5, equals $611.05. Now, algebraically, our next step would be to combine like terms. Notice here I have two terms with x. If I add those together, I have 50.5x equals $611.05. My last step is to go ahead and divide both sides by 50.5. And when I do that, I find that the hourly rate is $12.10. Please pause the video for this check your understanding. When you're ready, press play. All right, Julian worked 40 regular hours last week. She had 2 overtime hours at double time. So that's going to be 2 times her regular rate. Her gross pay was $484. What was her hourly rate? So we know that x equals her regular rate and 2x equals her overtime rate. We know that she worked 40 hours at that regular rate, plus she worked 2 hours at the double time rate, and her total pay was $484. So if I go ahead and I distribute all of these values, I get 40x plus 4x equals 484. I combine my like terms and get 44x equals 484. Divide both sides by 44, and x equals $11 per hour. All right, last example. Last week, Saul worked R regular hours and T overtime hours at time and a half and earned $700. If X represents his hourly rate, express his hours in terms of R and X. So we know 1.5 times X is his overtime. So if we break this down, we know that regular pay plus overtime pay is going to equal his total pay. Well, we know that he worked R hours of regular pay plus T hours at 1.5 times pay, and we know that the total was $700. When combining this, if I distribute, I've got Rx plus 1.5 XT equals the $700. And then I need to get it in terms of X, so I'm going to pull X out, kind of the opposite of distributing. I get R plus 1.5 T equals 700. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by the R plus 1.5 T. And I get that X equals 700 over R plus 1.5 T. Please pause for this check your understanding. When you are done, please press play. All right, Jonathan worked H hours at an hourly rate of R dollars. Also worked W hours at an overtime rate of double time. Express his total pay algebraically. Well, he worked R hours, H hours at R dollar rate, plus he worked at 2 times the rate times that overtime rate, and there you go.